You're listening to Turn 2 Podcast presented by Nosebleed Knowledge. Now here's your host, Tucker Franklin.
Hey guys, what is up? Welcome to episode 9 of the Turn 2 podcast all about baseball. I'm here with my boy, KB, Kieran Brennan.
How's it going?
And we're here to talk about our favorite sport, baseball. Big week of baseball. Big week of baseball because all-star rosters were announced, number one. We only have a few games until the all-star break actually happens. You and I both agree that it's the best all-star game of any of the major four sports.
Oh, yeah.
And
yeah.
There's lots of headlines coming out from the rosters. Obviously, every year you have snubs. Indians, Astros, Red Sox each have 5 all-stars in it. And the AL team is just absolutely stacked. We'll touch on all of those subjects. But let's first go through each of the rosters here. And what really stuck out to you, Kieran.
All right, so looking at the American League roster, let's look at that first. As Tucker already pointed out, it is far superior to the National League roster. And the National League roster it's a good team. Obviously, they're the best players, or some of the best players in that league. But if it were like the NBA and the NFL, if Major League Baseball was like them, and they only had one MVP for the entire league, the top 7 MVP candidates are from the American League. And a lot of those MVP candidates made the roster. So you're looking at a roster, the starters that include Wilson Ramos, Jose Abreu, Jose Altuve, Machado, Jose Ramirez, Mookie Betts, Mike Trout, Aaron Judge, and JD Martinez. That's just a stacked lineup, not to mention they have people like Gleyber Torres and Francisco Lindor, Bregman, Shin-Soo Choo making his first All-Star game on the reserves, and then they have this pitching staff includes Verlander, Kluber, Sale, Severino, Cole. Like, it's just top to bottom. This is probably one of the best all-star teams I've seen in recent memory.
I agree with you. When you were going through those reserves, a couple of those guys really stuck out to me. Alex Bregman, a reserve stud third baseman. But you look at the third baseman that's there, Jose Ramirez. He's a stud too. They just have so much depth. You mentioned Lindor making it to the reserve team. I really thought he was going to be able to beat Machado out for shortstop, but I guess that's what Lindor gets for Machado moving to shortstop. And then another one I had my eye on was Mitch Haniger, who that dude's been raking, and he finally gets awarded to an All-Star game.
I forget who I was listening to. It was either a podcast or some Major League player analysis. But you know how you look at Javi Baez play and you're like, man, that guy makes the game look really easy. Like, he makes it look super easy. I heard somebody say that Alex Bregman is really good at baseball, but he makes it look so hard. He makes it look like everything he's doing is so difficult to do, but he does it very well. So it's like, that's interesting, but yeah. I like it.
Yeah. Pop quiz, where's Alex Bregman? Where'd he go to college?
LSU.
Had a kid. You can't argue with how good this team is. One of the big snubs, I'll go ahead and talk about it now since we're talking about how good this pitching staff is. Blake Snell. The guy's I think he's actually leading the league, the MLB in ERA. And he's like tied for second in wins. And he's like 14 of 19 quality starts he has. Really just some unreal statistics. And he didn't even get named to the All-Star game just because of how stacked that this pitching staff is.
And it's also, we were talking about this before the show started. It also goes for, he didn't make it because of the rule that every team needs a representative, right. Which I get it. Everybody gets a representative, whatever. But sometimes that needs to change because it's a tragedy that Blake Snell did not make this lineup.
Right, I'm with you. Sometimes I think that rule needs to go away. It's an all-star game, not a every team gets to have a player here game. So I think that you really have to get off of that rule, and make sure that the best players are actually playing in that game.
And if you want to do something like that, like have everybody have a representative, then you can do like what the NBA does. And we all love the home run derby. One of the best parts of All-Star Weekend. But you could add more games of that sort, like more skills competitions, more stuff like that.
Oh yeah.
And add players. Maybe the Marlins don't really have a player that's good enough to make the All-Star team, and this is a hypothetical. I'm not saying Real Muto's not good enough because he's arguably the best catcher in the National League. But say he's not good enough to make the All-Star team. If you put him in one of these skills competitions, the Marlins still get their All-Star representative. They still get to see their favorite player compete at All-Star Weekend, but it doesn't take a roster spot for somebody who's truly deserving to be involved in the game.
I think that the only problem with that, I like that idea. I'm all on board with that idea. But you'll have the people say, well, if you add more events, because the events I started thinking of when you were talking about that, I thought of maybe an arm accuracy challenge where you try to throw a ball through a target, maybe a defensive challenge like ground balls, turning double plays, stuff like that. That you run the risk of a player getting hurt. And I think that's the thing that the MLB has ran into, is they don't want to get players hurt over All-Star Weekend.
Yeah, but I mean, you run into that in every sport. Then Major Leagues is the only team that doesn't have these players. The reason this is the best All-Star game that Tucker and I alluded to at the beginning, up until 2-3 years ago, players, it decided who had home field advantage in the World Series. So the players were going balls to the wall. We saw players get injured because it meant something for their team, for potentially their team and their league. So players and they still go balls to the wall here. So they would have the potential of getting hurt, during the game. So if your argument is that they could potentially get hurt playing these games, then just do away with All-Star Weekend, because the potential to get hurt is always there.
Right. Going back to Blake Snell, Justin Verlander is already inactive, so I think that he'll find his way onto the All-Star roster. Jeff Passan of Yahoo Sports tweeted out a series of tweets about how Snell got screwed. Number one, it's because the players weren't very good at who they voted for. They voted for Nelson Cruz over Shin-Soo Choo. But the Rangers needed a representative, and Shin-Soo Choo was logical. And I was surprised to find out this was actually Choo's first appearance in the All-Star game.
Yep. Shin-Soo Choo and Nick Markakis making their first All-Star game appearances at a pretty old age.
Right. So the Choo's an outfielder, and the Rangers needed a rep, so Choo was the logical pick. He took an outfield spot that should have gone to Eddie Rosario, Nick Castellanos. Springers could have too. Chris Archer made a video about how all this could have went down as well. The other one is the Twins and Tigers needed a rep. Because of this rule that every team needs a rep, Jose Barrios and Joe Jimenez were in and Blake Snell was out.
Yeah, it's a series of unfortunate events. So because of the way pitching rotations work, there will be a couple pitching spots that open. I think what's his face, Bauer, I think he had a start earlier this week, or the week of the All-Star break.
Yeah, he pitches Sunday.
So that'll be another spot that opens up. There's a couple spots that will open up, so maybe make the injustice right. But it was just a series of unfortunate events. There's some faults in the plan, but what are you going to do?
Well, we'll wrap up the American League with the final vote candidates. All of these guys actually really good final vote candidates. They all probably deserve to be on the All-Star team. But again, this roster is just so stacked. You have Andrew Benintendi of the Red Sox, Eddie Rosario for the Twins, Gene Segura for the Managers. I'll talk about him later. Andrelton Simmons, shortstop for the Angels, and Giancarlo Stanton for the Yankees. Stanton was a guy last year when he played in the National League who was voted in as a starter.
Yeah, it's crazy. He just goes from the National League to the American League, and like we've said before, American League is absolutely loaded. So, just shows to go, yeah.
Mm-hmm. You're right. Who are you voting for the American League final vote?
I'm voting for Benintendi. He's a fun player to play or to watch play. He hustles. I'm a sucker for guys that just hustle. You know, they play the game the right way. They're not bigger than the game. He hustles. He's supportive. And not to mention that he's a stud. He entering Sunday's competition, the 24-year-old was hitting .378 with an OPS of 1.155 with runners in scoring position. He's a stud. He might be an MVP candidate. He'll probably finish, I'm going to say he'll finish top 15 in votings for MVP. Plus, he's a Blues fan, and you can't knock that. So I'm voting Benny.
Yeah, I got to see Andrew Benintendi firsthand when I went to the Red Sox-Royals game on Saturday. I mean, the dude walked 4 times before he hit a bomb and an RBI double. So, I mean, and when he hit his home run, I told you I was sitting with there's some kids behind me because it was family night there at the old Kauffman Stadium. So there was families a lot of places. They had kids that didn't really know about the game of baseball. So a lot of these kids didn't really know that it was a home run off the bat. And as soon as he hit the ball, I knew it was a home run off the bat because of how it sounded. The dude absolutely ripped the ball.
Yeah, I can't stand it when I go to games and there are people sitting around me that they're talking and they don't really know what they're talking about, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Every once in a while I'll catch myself saying something wrong, like, I feel like an idiot. But these guys say a lot of things wrong. Plus, when you're sitting up in the nosebleeds like we are, nosebleed knowledge,
mm-hmm.
it takes you. It's a skill to read the ball off the bat.
Oh, yeah.
So you can read. I know I've developed this skill to just read the ball, like home run balls off the bat. I can tell when it's going to be a warning track power, and just sitting around the fans who don't quite know it that well, like the kid who sat behind you, and like a weak pop fly, but it's in the air, and they start freaking out. It's just like, it's frustrating.
Yeah, especially when you're sitting in the nosebleeds and you see a ball come like eye level with you, you know, and there's people
Mm-hmm.
all around there like, oh, baby, that's it, that's gone. And you're like, that's a pop-up to the second baseman.
Yeah.
We'll move on to the National League then. Once we I'll just move on to the National League. Wilson Contreras got the start. I know you talked to me about that, how you didn't actually think that he was the best guy for the job. Some highlights I see here. Nolan Arenado obviously getting the start. Stud, future Cardinal. Keep that on the hush, on the DL. Nick Markakis, good to see him in the All-Star game. Matt Kemp, great to see him back. Second appearance, I believe. Is that right? Second appearance? Third appearance.
3.
Oh, how about that? 2 catchers named for the All-Star reserves. How about that? I didn't know that. I'm just now seeing this. I wrote a blog about it, and I'm just now realizing that they had 2 catchers. I guess I assumed Buster Posey was a first baseman.
No, Buster Posey is the catcher, and as of about, we'll say, 9 o'clock, he, on Monday, July 9th, Buster Posey was scratched due to a hip and replaced with Yadier Molina.
Oh, buddy. Yadi, and then you have a chance, we'll get the final vote. You have a chance to get another one in, so that'll be 3, right?
Yep, and then the strength and conditioning coach.
Oh,
so that'll be 4 Cardinals representatives, boy.
Yeah, you and I had a conversation about that earlier, about why do they need a strength and conditioning coach for bringing together one game?
They need to be strength and conditioned, boy.
I guess so. I'm looking at this pitching staff. Miles Michaelis, obviously, great pitcher for the Cardinals. He's starting to grow on me a little. Sean Doolittle named for the Nationals, so he'll probably see some time. You have to think that Max Scherzer is going to start this game.
I'm going to go ahead and say that there is a 100% chance that Max Scherzer starts. The only other reasonable option would be Jacob deGrom, and you are not going to start Jacob deGrom, an NL East rival, over the hometown boy of Max Scherzer. Max Scherzer is runaway NL Cy Young favorite ahead of Jacob deGrom, and it's a home game for him. So if Dave Roberts doesn't start Max Scherzer,
Dummy.
Big old dum-dum.
Big old dummy. All right, I have two more things that stuck out to me, and then I'll let you talk about what stuck out to you from this lineup. Ozzie Albies named as a reserve. I believe that he was in the starter position for a little bit at the beginning, before Javi Baez came in at the end and took the fan vote, which you'll see that a lot, I think, now that Ozzie Albies has really grown into, he hasn't really fully grown into what he can be. So you're going to see that competition between Javi Baez and Ozzie Albies. There was another thing I had. You might go ahead. Oh, good to see Lorenzo Cain in the All-Star game. Old friend alert.
Old friend alert.
Miss him. Better than Alcides Escobar. You know what?
A lot of people don't.
You know what? Alcides Escobar tracks a fly ball like a shortstop.
You know, a lot of players in the majors, I heard that a lot of pitchers in the majors were former shortstops. Shortstop's the best athlete on the field.
Yeah.
Or should be.
Yeah. What really stuck out to you from this lineup? Did you have anything strike you?
I mean, it's a good lineup. It's just not as good as the American League. It's interesting to see that the Reds have been so atrocious this year.
Yeah.
Yet they have three representatives. You know,
Mm-hmm.
Scooter Gennett has been tearing it up this year, but like Scooter Gennett and Eugenio Suarez have just been tearing it up this year, but they play for a bad Reds team. Joey Votto's been consistent as usual, named his 6th All-Star game. We like to see that. I would have liked to see, bias. Might be a little bias alert, but I would have liked to see, I don't know how to phrase this, Real Muto get the start over Wilson Contreras. But I get it, fan voting, they're going to vote. Chicago's a much bigger market than Miami. Chicago fans are much more supportive of the team at this day and age than Miami fans are. I think we touched on it last week. Miami's Double-A team a couple times last week had more attendance than the Marlins did.
Yeah.
So I would have liked to see, but Real Muto has quietly been tearing up this league. So he's second in home runs amongst catchers. He's first in RBIs, first in hits, first in average, first in WAR, first in weighted runs created plus. He is tearing it up, and he's played 11 less games than Wilson Contreras. So I would have it's just, in a perfect world, fans would vote for who they want to see in the All-Star game, and then the manager would decide who the starters are and stuff like that. But I would like to see a little more love. I saw this stat that I'm going to get it wrong, but do you know how fast Real Muto is?
He's pretty quick. I knew that he was quick for a catcher.
He's quick for a baseball player. Rated as I forget the stats, but as having elite speed, just flat out, not catcher, but man, that guy is impressive.
Yeah,
but I like that. I like that Yadier Molina. I hate to see Buster Posey go down with an injury, but I like Yadier Molina replacing him.
I like that idea
You know?
you have. Yeah, no, I really like the idea that you have about the player vote and then combine the player vote and the fan vote and then have the manager decide who he picks as starters. I like that idea.
Because, it's about putting the best talent on the field. And a lot of times the fan votes don't get it right, as we saw a couple of years ago when Omar Infante, was he a starter?
We were pushing. Hashtag vote Omar. We were pushing to get all 9 Royals guys. Well, I think at one point we had 7 or 8, and I think the last one we were looking for was Omar. Well, Omar Infante was just bad that year, but we were looking to get Omar, but we had 7 or 8, and we just stuffed the ballots. That was one of my favorite years because we cheated the system.
It was ridiculous that Omar Infante. I love the fan vote. Great way to get the fans involved, but there was no reason players like Omar Infante should be all-star starters.
Oh, very true statement. No way he should have been. Well, we'll go ahead and move on to the final vote for the National League. You have final vote candidates Jesus Aguilar, Brandon Belt, Matt Carpenter, Max Muncy, Trey Turner. We talked about snubs for the American League. Not really a lot of snubs for the National League. I think a lot of the snubs made it into the final vote. I wrote in my blog, Trey Turner, Max Muncy, and Jesus Aguilar are obviously snubs. But Jesus Aguilar, I think, is the biggest snub out of all of those.
Yep. Jesus Aguilar is quietly an NL MVP contender. But all these guys are super good. That's all I got to say.
Oh, yeah. Like, you're not going to get...
Wait. Time out.
Yeah.
I was looking up Max Muncy's stats, and this is his 3rd year in the league. He has 20 home runs this year, and he has 25 career home runs. So that means coming into this year, he had 5 career home runs.
Jeez.
and has quintupled it. It's just he's having an unreal season. If they have a bounce back player of the year or most improved player of the year, he's got to be the choice. You know?
Yeah, that's so wild. He was what was I watching? I was watching the A's and Dodgers game. I think that was Sunday night. Last night, that game was either that. Yeah, it would have been Sunday night. I was watching that game. And they were talking about how Max Muncy was, waiting for his high school to get done practicing so he could do his workouts afterwards. And, now, that was, 2 years ago. Now he's in the league just absolutely raking. I have some stats here. Fastest Dodger to hit 20 home runs in terms of at-bats, which if you think about the players that have played for the Dodgers, and they've had some bombers, that's insane.
Yeah. I don't know. It's baffling, the fact of what these teams can do, or what these players can do from year to year. They can just, skyrocket to stardom.
Mm-hmm.
At the drop of a hat.
Well, it's a league of adjustments. I wouldn't be surprised if we see pitchers in the National League come out and adjust to them. They'll get to watch film during the break, and they'll adjust, no doubt. Final vote candidate. Go ahead.
We've seen them adjust to Cody Bellinger, Cody Bellinger has been struggling, to say the least.
Absolute garbage. A sophomore slump of quite some. It's a large sophomore slump. I'll just say that. Now, we obviously know who you're picking in the final vote candidate, Matt Carpenter, Cardinals. I think he hit a home run tonight, didn't he?
They didn't play tonight. He hit a home run last night. Splashdown.
Yeah, last night. My bad.
Yep, against the Giants. Splashdown. Dude is a stud.
Yeah, the hardest part. I really think Jesus Aguilar should be in this All-Star game. When I wrote this blog last night, which would have been Sunday night, I wanted Max Muncy to send to the All-Star game. just because of how he's came up to stardom. Just like the way he got here, how he was waiting for his high school team to get done, like I said. And the Dodgers, he really became the saving grace of the Dodgers for a team that looked like that they had no idea what the sport of baseball was after the month of May got over. But Jesus Aguilar hit 2 home runs last night. Like, this dude just rakes. It's unreal.
Yeah.
I think I'm going to flip and I'm going to send Jesus Aguilar.
Yeah, he is very talented, very good. And the thing is, he hasn't qualified for a lot of the stats yet.
Mm-hmm.
He hasn't played enough games, haven't had enough bats to qualify. So if you look at just rankings, you don't get the full spectrum of how good he is because he won't show up on some because he hasn't qualified yet. Later on, I'm going to just give you a spoiler alert now. Tucker and I are going to discuss our midseason MVP, our midseason awards. Tucker will have the American League. I'll have the National League because those are what our favorite teams reside in. But my vote for National League MVP is Jesus Aguilar. And I think he is the player that got snubbed the worst from the National League roster simply because he's been tearing it up so much. But my vote's going for Matt Carpenter. I woke up at 3 o'clock in the morning last night, and I couldn't sleep, so I voted 100 times for Matt Carpenter.
Hey, you gotta do what you gotta do. Let's just go ahead and just go right into our first half awards. You said your MVP is Jesus Aguilar. I'll go ahead and talk about my MVP. I mean, you gotta give it to Mike Trout, but it's really close. Because Mike Trout is having a historic year. I know everyone's been talking about it. That's probably all you hear about is how good of a year Mike Trout has been having. Has a wins above replacement of 6.9. Nice. But he doesn't lead in batting average. His on-base percentage is there. Slugging percentage isn't number 1. On-base plus slugging, OPS, isn't number 1. So, in these traditional statistics, he's only leading one of the 4.
Yeah, but he's leading, and the person ahead of him is Mookie Betts. But in recent memory, or since Mike Trout came into the league, that was when the stat of win of replacement came into the light. How good is your team when you're on the field, as opposed to how many wins they have when you're on the field, as opposed to how many wins they have when your backup's on the field. And Mike Trout has dominated that statistic for as long as he came into the league. MVP has really become a wins above replacement race, which I guess when you look at MVP and WAR, they kind of coincide with each other. How valuable are you to your team? How does your team perform when you're not on the field?
Right.
So good.
Yeah.
And he's been overshadowed. He's been overshadowed because God knows why.
And Mookie Betts, looking at the wins above replacement, top 10, Blake Snell is number 10, by the way, which is impressive for all in the American League. That just goes back to how big of a snub he was. Mookie Betts sits at number 3 with a 5.4, and Mike Trout's at 1 with a 6.9. So nice, but it just shows you how much better he is than really his peers in the wins above replacement statistic.
Yeah,
but you can't just gloss over Mookie Betts either. Like, he's leading batting average, he's leading slugging percentage. He has the highest on base plus slugging, which is one of the stats, one of the more traditional, and air quotes traditional stats that I put emphasis on is OPS, because I think it really is more of how good a hitter is. OPS is more of an accurate description. There's no good one. Let's just face it. Stats are a lousy attempt at us trying to figure out how good a player is. But I think OPS is probably one of the best traditional hitting ones, and he's leading the league in that. And Mike Trout's second. In slugging percentage, Mike Trout's third. On batting average, Mike Trout is 6th. So, I mean, Mike Trout is really close to Mookie Betts, but I think right now, just because Mike Trout's WAR is where it is, you have to give the MVP to Mike Trout.
Yeah. I mean, I see where you're coming from. It's just a shame that it's weird to think about. All right. So when you look at it, most valuable player, who's most valuable to their team, that's obviously what that means. It just kind of seems like Mookie Betts is being punished for being on a better team.
Right.
Yeah, a better team. A team with outfielders like Jackie Bradley Jr., I think Brock Holt plays outfield, Andrew Benintendi, all stud outfielders.
Yeah.
When Mookie Betts not playing, they put another stud in there. And a lot of times they win with the replacement. So, like, it just seems like Red Sox are the best team in the American League. I know of basketball, and a lot of times in football, the MVP ends up going to the best player on the best team. But in baseball, it seems like they actually take into consideration who is the most valuable to their team. So it kind of sucks for Mookie Betts that he probably won't win this award, but it's been Mike Trout's world, and everybody else is just living in it up until this year.
Right. We'll move on to our next award, the Cy Young, Best Pitcher in the National League. Who do you have, KB?
I got Max Scherzer because he has been the best pitcher in the National League. The only other pitcher that Mizzou made, the only other pitcher that holds a candle to him is Jacob deGrom, and this is where like wins become an arbitrary stat because Jacob deGrom has like no wins because he plays for arguably the worst team in the league.
Now that's the Orioles, but
and so I said arguably. You can say arguably about anything, and then
that's true.
But yeah, Max Scherzer, runaway Cy Young candidate so far, and he's just going to keep tearing it up. This is another instance where the Cy Young doesn't play for the best team, but but that's just how it is.
Yeah, I'm with you. Mad Max, one of my favorite pitchers. He was one of my favorite pitchers before I even knew that he was from Mizzou. And then once I knew he was from Mizzou, I liked him even more.
Oh, yeah. It doesn't hurt.
No. It's cool how he has two different colored eyes, too. I was watching an interview with him today. It almost, like, throws you off, but it's really cool to see.
Oh, yeah. Okay, so I was listening to a podcast, and they talked about it, and they say if Scherzer continues at the pace that he's been pitching at, does he overtake Clayton Kershaw as the best pitcher considered the best pitcher in the league? And they said no, because of because highs were so much higher than Max Scherzer's. Plus, Clayton Kershaw has been with one team, whereas Max Scherzer, the Nationals are now his third team.
Right.
So contingency kind of plays into that.
I don't know how I feel about
interesting
that.
to listen to.
I don't know how I feel about that because
I don't either.
Clayton Kershaw hasn't really pitched this year.
Yeah.
It seems like Clayton Kershaw's hurt a lot, too. He doesn't perform well in the postseason. Last year was the only postseason that he really performed well in. So to call him the best pitcher in the Kershaw probably has the best stuff in the league, I'll say that. But that's tough.
I think the tricky part is you mentioned the postseason pitching, where Max Scherzer hasn't been stellar either.
Right.
He's got, you look at his career ERA of 3.73, 10 series, not bad.
Mm-hmm.
But it's not the level of like Corey Kluber, some of the best, considered one of the best like postseason pitchers. So I don't know. Plus, I feel like Max Scherzer and Clayton Kershaw are two different types of pitchers. Like you said, Clayton Kershaw is the best stuff in the league. Max Scherzer is more of a power pitcher,
Right.
where he's susceptible to the home run ball. So, I don't know. I think the home run ball has hurt Max Scherzer some.
Yeah, you know who the home run ball has hurt? Jacob Junis. He's allowed 24 home runs, which is just a stupid number. Anyway, I'll stop talking about the Royals. They just make me mad. My AL Cy
You
Young.
mentioned one Royal and you got mad.
Yeah, they blew a lead today because our bullpen is absolutely terrible. But it's okay. I'll get over it eventually. What was I talking about? Oh yeah, AL Cy Young. Chris Sale is my AL Cy Young. Leads for WAR and pitchers. We talked about how that statistic seems to hold a lot of weight, a lot of water. He has a 5.1 WAR. He also has the most strikeouts per 9 innings, which is really impressive, with 12.9. He strikes out almost 13 guys per 9 innings, which is absolutely ridiculous. Another stat to go along with the strikeouts per 9 are just the strikeouts that he's recorded this year. 176 strikeouts. The dude is a strikeout pitcher, and ladies love strikeouts when they're watching the pitcher, obviously.
Mm-hmm.
That's the sexy part of the game.
Plus, in my experience, when I first started taking my girlfriend to baseball games, she would complain that they were too long, and strikeout and games with high strikeouts were better because they made the game go faster. So
that's a good point.
Chick stick the long ball, and I'm not saying that at all, girl. Chick stick the long ball, chick stick strikeouts, and Chris Sale has probably got a lot of Chicas around him.
I'll go ahead and move on to a rookie of the first half for the American League. Gleyber Torres, not a big shock. I mean, that's pretty self-explanatory. Dude's pretty good. I hate to say it because he's a Yankee, but oh well. Who do you have for your ROTFH?
Juan Soto. I mean, Albies and Acuna could both make a run at this one, but my heart wanted to say the rookies on the Cardinals, but Harrison Bader hasn't been getting has been getting more playing time this past couple of weeks, but hasn't been getting a lot of playing time and Jack Flaherty has been struggling. So I'm going to go Juan Soto. He's been I think on average he's performed the best in the games that he's been in, and he's only been in like 35 this year.
Right.
So, yep, my vote's Juan Soto, NL MVP.
And I have
not NL MVP, Rookie of the Year.
Yep. And I've got one more award. I don't know if you have one of these, but the most underrated player in the American League, I think, is Gene Segura. Gene Segura's been just balling out, and nobody recognizes. We talked about it on one of the podcasts. I don't remember what week it was, about how he's kind of stuck up in the Northwest there in Seattle, and he doesn't really get much attention. Kind of like how the Pac-12 complains in football, how they don't get enough attention when it comes to like selection or when they choose the bowl games and everything, because their games are on so late. That's pretty much what Gene Segura has been doing right there. Let me find the stats that I have here about Gene Segura. He leads all other American shortstops in batting average with .330 and hits, second in doubles and stolen bases. He's tied for the Major League lead with 35 multi-hit games and leads the whole entire league with 15 games of 3 hits or more.
Yeah, I think that's like you alluded to before, just the typical bias against the Pacific Northwest,
Yep. That's got to be it. That's the only reason. Because he's balling.
All right. If I had to pick a most underrated player, it would have to be Jesus Aguilar. He's underrated because he leads the league. He leads the league he leads the team in so much stuff, but he's underrated because if I went up to somebody on the street and I said, "Hey, who are the Brewers players you can name?" They'd probably say Christian Yelich, Lorenzo Cain, Eric Thames, Travis Shaw, Ryan Braun. Jesus Aguilar is leading the team in most categories and would probably not even come out of their mouth. So he's an underrated player. my pick for MVP. He's just been absolutely dominating the league this year.
I like it. Your MVP is the most underrated player. I'm a big fan of that.
Yeah, I mean, that's how I feel. That's just how I feel.
Yeah. Since we've ran a little long on this episode, usually our episodes, as most of you guys know, run about 30 minutes. This one's already up to 40 minutes already as we're recording it. We'll go ahead and skip the farm report. If you want to know any more about the minor league baseball, check out my blog here. That'll be coming out shortly, probably on Tuesday. It'll be out Tuesday. KB, you want to talk about your series to look forward to this week?
Yep. 3 real quick series to watch. We got Seattle going to the Angels. That'll be Tuesday through Thursday. That's a big matchup for the NL or the AL West. Seattle's still fighting for that playoff spot. All starting on Thursday is Yankees at Indians. That's 2 of the best teams in baseball fighting it out. That'll be in Cleveland. That's Thursday through Saturday. And then Friday through Sunday, we have the Diamondbacks playing the Braves. That's a matchup of a couple first-place teams. First-place teams for now. I remember, I think it was really early in the season. I would just like to point out a prediction that I've made that's really close to coming true. When the Dodgers were in 4th place, I said I wouldn't be surprised if they make a run and are in first place by the All-Star break. I believe I said that. And right now, let's see, a week before the All-Star break, the Dodgers are 1 game out of first place. So
we'll go back and check the tapes.
We'll go back and check the tapes, but I'm 90% sure I made that prediction.
Hey, I'm with you. I don't really remember it, but I'm sure you did. Are you going into any baseball games this week? Any baseball games?
Nope, I will not be going to any baseball games this week.
I have to coach American Legion. We're in the district tournament.
Oh.
Yeah, big game on Thursday. So, make sure... Well, I'll recap that game. I really won't, because nobody cares about American Legion baseball. But, you have any final thoughts, KB? Next week's show, let's do it on Wednesday, because All-Star game is on Tuesday, I believe. The Home Run Derby is Monday. And we'll want to talk about the All-Star game, so there's not a lot of games going on either. So let's do it Tuesday or Wednesday. Release Wednesday. Unless you want to do a show on Monday before the Home Run Derby to recap the last week, and then another show on Wednesday to recap the Home Run Derby and the All-Star game.
Let's just do it on Tuesday.
Tuesday?
Yeah.
After the All-Star game?
Yeah, let's just record on Tuesday, release Wednesday.
All right. A little behind the curtain right there. Good to see behind the scenes of Turn 2. Thanks for tuning in, guys. Really appreciate it. Make sure to like us on Facebook, Nosebleed Knowledge. Follow us on Twitter at NosebleedsKnow. Make sure to subscribe, download, rate, review. Our livelihood depends on it. And we'll catch you guys on the flip.